goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Okay, guys, we're going to dive in as people are still filtering in to sit down. We don't have long to talk, but we have lots to say.
Yes.
As always.
So we're going to talk super duper fast.
We are. So just real quick, who has seen this movie before? Who's seen it before? Oh, sweet. A lot of you.
Nice.
Okay. And I'm sorry, anybody who hasn't, did you all see it already? Oh, awesome. Okay. So
thank you for coming, friend.
In for a treat, you guys. So,
I hope you don't have a problem with bees.
So this
First of all, we're the Cinema Psycho
We
Show.
are the Cinema Psycho Show. Thank you all for coming. We're really happy to see your smiling faces.
Should we do the whole opening?
We should do the
for
whole
Film Freaks and
Are you
Film
going to do
Fans
it?
of
All
all
right.
Yeah.
He's your host, Brian Cunnington, followed by his fellow co-host and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
We're in episode 153.
Woo! 153.
153.
Well, I'm sorry, that was a little atrophied, wasn't it? I think we can do a little better than that.
Yeah, there we go.
That's it. All right.
Yeah.
Great. So this is a really interesting movie. Now, we had talked about this backstage, and horror was in a really weird place during this time. So the year is
1992.
Right. It's a
I hope
weird
it's not weird
time.
that I'm standing. I just was like, I don't know why we're sitting down. So I just,
I'm lazy. That's why I'm sitting
I
down.
just a little too juiced up. That's why. I was going to do this. Is this natural?
It's supernatural. I like it.
So,
anyway,
yeah.
1992. Horror's in kind of a weird spot. We were talking about this
basically
backstage.
92, and we were talking about this backstage. 92 was a weird time. Basically, 92 up until about 95. Because
the slasher genre was dead.
Yeah, it had died in 91 with Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. And at this time, Hollywood was really trying to figure out what was going to be the next big thing. So they were throwing anything that stuck. This is where you get movies like Leprechaun, okay? And you get movies like Tales from the Hood.
And Leprechaun 2.
Leprechaun 2.
Leprechaun 3.
And also,
Leprechaun in Space.
Well, those are later.
Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yes. So ultimately, horror was trying to figure out, all right, what are we going to do next? And kind of out of this obscurity comes, Candyman. A movie that is based on the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker.
There is a real murderer that's the Candyman murderer, not
not
relation.
Not
related.
Don't Google
not
it.
Related.
It's an unfortunate.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
No, unless you're into that sort of thing.
So this movie comes out based on Clive Barker's short story from Books of Blood called The Forbidden. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that this movie, it plays on a lot of different subject matter, at the time. And I think it's still relevant to play on. I mean, you've got issues of race, you've got issues of gentrification.
Redlining. What how society forgets the lowest level of people on an economic level. I mean,
And it's interesting because, most people don't think that horror can go that deep. And this movie is an example of how horror can be used to kind of showcase societal issues in a way that is intelligent. I mean, a lot of people, they'll look at this movie and you look at, Ebert and what's his name, Siskel. They hated this movie.
What's his name? They're like the most famous.
Siskel and Ebert. How did you get them out of order?
Fair, I don't like them. So that's why they looked at this movie and they really didn't get it. They viewed it as just a slasher film. But I think there's much more to it.
I think there's a lot.
Layers.
I think there's a lot to it. And as we always say, we can't talk about this movie without at least addressing the issue of race, because there's a lot of different ways to see it, and even the filmmakers themselves were worried that they had portrayed things incorrectly, and they had looked to experts to see if everything was all right, because the idea of it being a black boogeyman, basically, which wasn't that common.
Well, they sent it to the NAACP, right?
Right, and they sent it to the NAACP to kind of just double check and make sure it was okay, because none of those tensions occurred in the short story. This was all stuff that came out after the film was already made.
Bernard Rose, who was the director of this, he was the one who injected.
Watch those hard B's.
Oh yeah, I know.
I had a hard B.
A hard B.
Bernard Rose.
So he had injected a lot of the societal issues into his film. He got the Clive Barker short story, which was ultimately just about kind of class issues, in England.
Drab English people versus Boers.
And really brought it to...
Right, because it was in England.
Yeah.
The story took place in England, in case you aren't fluent in John, which I am.
And he was concerned that this was going to be a racist film. And so he did talk to the NAACP. And ultimately, the NAACP came back and said, why are we even having this meeting? Why couldn't an African-American portray someone like a Freddy Krueger or a Pinhead?
And too, with Tony Todd, it was a totally different kind of monster. I don't know if I want to say monster. I mean, like in the sense of
I would say
Jason or Freddy or Frankenstein.
Right. I would say
the
that
antagonist,
that Candyman is more in line with a Dracula than a Frankenstein.
Right, like the elegance and like the legend, there's the legend of Candyman, which is what Virginia Madsen's character is studying. Totally missed that in grad school. Why didn't I study scary things? That would have been amazing.
That's right.
Totally effed this up, you guys.
Yeah.
Because you had to learn how to gleam and
I know.
pedagogy.
Hey, listen, I am an expert on pedagogy now, so
let's lay some pedagogy down.
Yes, let's lay it down.
So some of the things to take away from this film, one, I take away from this film that it is, ultimately, Virginia Madsen's character is a good person who is only guilty of trying to take away the mythology of Candyman.
Any Virginia Madsen fans in the room?
Yeah. No?
Thank you for not lying. I was hoping somebody would go, woo, and I'd be like, liar.
Listen, she has some beautiful Gillian Anderson vibes in this movie. She's so pretty in this movie.
But ultimately, I think that's the problem with her is that she's not offering anything to solve the issues of that are facing Cabrini Green.
She's doing it to better herself.
She's really just trying to
just helping herself,
and help get her degree and that whole thing. But ultimately, she's a victim. And it's a sad film, honestly, I think.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think there's a huge question of sanity and madness in the film. So we only have one person who hasn't seen it. So this isn't two people.
We're trying real hard not to spoil this
Yeah, we're
movie.
trying not to spoil anything. But as far as madness goes, I think something to keep in mind is one of the things that this film makes me think of is where do we end up when we assume the worst of each other?
Right.
And what does that mean? And also, when you're trying to shout your own truth, but it doesn't look good for you, what does that do to you emotionally and mentally and physically? Because there is quite the question of who has done what as the film unfolds. And I think that question, are you mad? Are you sane? It depends on who you ask, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, the idea that when you have power and privilege, and as you'll see in this movie, you basically have to have, a smoking gun in your hand for people to assume the worst. When you have none of those things, people automatically assume the worst from the outset without provocation.
Listen, you're not just booty tooches. You are deep and smart. The whole package.
Yeah. Is this one of the few horror movies that actually holds up?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it does.
You watch a lot of the
does.
Friday the 13th, you're like, oh.
Well,
I think there's still stuff that's relevant today. The fashion is now back in style, which makes me feel old as shit.
I forgot to wear my fur coat. I'm a little.
I know. I don't think you need to dress up for everything. I think it's all right.
Don't.
I think it's okay. No fur coat. And if you'd have brought the bees in, I know at least two people who would have cried.
But I think it definitely holds up just because, as you said, Lane, these are issues we're dealing with. We're still dealing with issues of gentrification. We're still dealing with racial issues. So, I mean,
absolutely.
It is absolutely relevant. I even say almost more so now because, the filmmaker, when he made this, Bernard Rose said that he wanted a conversation to take place after this film. He thought, okay, I'll make a movie like this and hopefully people will have that conversation. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We're still dealing with it now.
Yeah. This is the tail end of H.W. Bush.
Yeah, that's right.
We hadn't even got Billy Jeffs yet, who wasn't even really that great to begin with.
Didn't even have the Clintons yet. So it was a time gone by.
Yeah,
so
this movie doesn't have a whole lot of kills in it. So a lot of people criticize this movie as it's a slasher,
and he makes them count though. It's like medium upset.
Yeah, there's maybe only about 3 or so
good ones.
Good ones.
There's good ones.
It also has, in my opinion, one of the best soundtracks of any horror
You do
film.
love that soundtrack.
I love that soundtrack. It's
brought to you by Philip Glass.
Philip Glass, who doesn't like this
music.
movie. Yeah. He doesn't like this movie. He thought he was going to make a Clive Barker film and ended up with this. And I'm like, how can you not like this still? But it has one of the best soundtracks. I put this one and Psycho in the same realm. It also has one of the first instances of using what's called a sky cam, which we
Yeah,
know now.
you'll see it right away, like in the beginning of the film, those like aerial shots. Now you can do it with like a $250 drone. But back then, those shots were a big deal, guys. Like that's huge for the technology at the time. Notice how smooth the movements are as they go into it. That was a big honking deal. And it was Skycam?
Skycam.
Like
is what it's called,
Skynet?
Skynet.
Skycam.
Skynet.
We're watching you. That's so weird. Okay, who wants a fun fact about the film? Anybody? Okay.
Lane, don't give it to them. They can do better than that.
Who wants a fun fact?
Ask them again.
Who would like a fun fact? There we go. All right. So the fun fact about the film is, first of all, spoiler alert, there's bees in it. The bees are real, and they are in some very funny places that I would not want bees like in your mouth.
Very uncomfortable places.
So what happened was Tony Todd had a great lawyer for this film, and they finagled for him to do the live stunt, but he'd get a bonus every time he got stung. So how many times do you guys think he got stung?
Does anybody know what Michael Jordan's number is? Or LeBron James might know. 23.
So he was stung 23 times. He got $1,000 a sting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would literally do that. I would do that right now. That would cut my student loans in half. Like, here, take a leg, take an arm.
Take it easy.
I'm excited.
There is a point where bees are coming out of his mouth, and he did get stung in his mouth. Now, the bees were only, 6 days old?
Yeah, they were baby bees.
Yeah, so they weren't that painful.
So they looked like adult bees, but their stingers weren't powerful enough to hurt.
Correct.
If you were,
I'm sure it still hurt.
I guess to poison you if you were allergic to bees.
to mess you up too bad.
The way they accomplished this, because I watched this again to review it, and you look at the shot and you'll see it in here. And at first glance, you're like, oh, that must be a prop head. And then you realize that the face is moving. You're like, no, that's really him. He's got a dental dam in his mouth that's preventing the bees
so they don't
from
go down
going
his
back into his throat. So, that type of commitment, I don't think you'd get nowadays. I hope that Jordan Peele got him to do that again for the remake.
I hope.
Virginia
Madsen was
Jordan,
not
I'm
happy
eating
about
any more
it.
bees.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's like, listen, man.
Jordan Peele is doing a remake of this.
Yeah, that's who's doing the remake.
Clear.
So someone who's doing a good job of horror, like through the lens of our culture and what's wrong with
I would
society,
say that if you're going to remake this, I'm glad that he is behind it.
Agreed.
Because I don't think anyone else could get it.
Agreed. Okay, so that's about time. Did we say everything we wanted to say?
5:10. What do we have here? Do we have?
It's we're 5:10 and it's almost that now. So.
What's 5:05? Isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. My watch is always fast because I'm late for everything. So I have 5:15.
We got 5 minutes to fill dance party. Dead silence.
Yeah, that was great.
So like, dead air.
Movie, please.
There's something else cool about the film.
Okay, what else?
Virginia Madsen was almost not the star. It was supposed to be the director's wife, who was the one who found the Clive Barker story and brought it to her husband and said, you should make this movie. She got pregnant. So Virginia Madsen was supposed to be the friend character. And then once the director's wife got pregnant, Virginia Madsen was cast in the role, and then her role was back cast.
Yep.
So I think that's interesting, too, because, you always think about that, like who would be in the lead. Eddie Murphy was almost Candyman instead of Tony Todd. I mean, this was a career maker for Tony Todd. I think that's tough when you're known for comedy. It's like hard to take you seriously. You know what I mean? So
this would have been at the same time as Boomerang. So.
It could have been a very different movie, but I think there's a lot of really great lines in this. I think there's a lot of really great themes. One of the main things that's happening is Virginia Madsen's character is trying to take away the folklore, and she's trying to kind of debunk the whole idea of the Candyman, and in so doing, by making people disbelieve, he's kind of losing his grip on the earth, or it's all very lyrical in a way that I don't think that we really see in horror movies that are usually very literal.
You could say that Freddy versus Jason kind of stole this from Candyman. Because
what?
Yes.
What?
Because if you remember in Freddy versus
drop a Freddy versus Jason reference?
I know, I'm baffled too. I'm very upset.
I threw this all on them. I didn't even tell them I was going to do this. So in Freddy versus Jason, if you remember, Freddy says, no one believes in me, so I can't kill anyone anymore. So that's why he gets Jason to kill for him, is so that people believe in him. So So get it?
I see.
They ripped it right off of Candyman.
See. Well, there's some great lines by Tony
That's
Todd
a
in
great
this
Freddy
film.
versus Jason
That-
reference.
I had to
Thank
throw it
you,
in
sir.
there. You're
You have any
welcome.
Alien versus Predator?
Yeah, please never bring these
Give me
movies
10
up
more
again.
minutes and I can't.
Oh my god! But
So-
there's some really great lines, though. I think, and I didn't appreciate them enough the first time I saw the film. That I'm glad that I had the opportunity to go back and study, because a lot of what Tony Todd's character speaks about is that, how he wants to live in rumor. It's so much better to live in rumor than to have to be. So like he knows he's not necessarily real, but as long as he's whispered about, as long as people are afraid, he will still exist in some form. I think
And
that's
the sequels kind of screwed that whole thing up, unfortunately.
Spoiler
I've
alert!
avoided them.
Damn.
I've avoided them completely.
You don't.
I've never seen a Candyman.
You can
sequel.
see the second one. The second one's not half bad. The third one, I
not
watched
bad,
about 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, nope, this is bad. Turn it off.
I mean,
it ruins the
it's-
whole thing for you.
It's no Freddy versus Jason.
No, it isn't.
What did Siskel and Ebert think of it, Brian?
They're dead, so I don't know.
Oh, ouch! Oh, wow!
But they live in our hearts, Brian.
in our
If we
hearts
don't believe in them, they
forever.
won't exist.
But yeah.
Oh my god!
But
So-
but also look out for Virginia Madsen being hypnotized. They did actually have a hypnotist on set.
Really?
And
Really?
they put her into a trance for a lot
I
of
didn't
shots
know
until she
that.
was like, "Yeah, I don't like that anymore. Can we not do that?
Can we not?
anymore?"
Yeah.
Can we not?
Yeah, let's
Let's
stop
not.
that because
Let's
like
just
I
not.
lose time.
Let's just not.
It's like blacking out with the enjoyment of drinking. So
Oh,
you want to be a star?
Well,
I'm going to stand behind this ficus, and then you'll be in the movies.
you said you'd make us uncomfortable. Good job, buddy.
Good job. So we're ready to let this movie roll.
I think so. I think so. Who is excited? That was pretty good. That was
Yeah,
pretty good.
So be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you all in the audience have a favorite movie or question you want to throw away, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. And make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. And we will see you next time. Let's roll Candyman.
Candyman.
Don't do
Candyman.
it. Don't do it.
Candyman.
Ah!